For real, shot that niggas a switch. Okay, I really came back on my shit. My man's be mobile.
What is indeed going on, people, and welcome back to the Main Event Podcast. I am your host, Jonathan Pibney, along with my co-host, Kofi O'Hemming from KO Sports Talk. And once again, we're talking about the Chicago Bears, this time taking on the Seattle Seahawks in this Week 16 matchup. And man, it's been very, very rough for our team. Now, at this time, it's 4-10. God damn. They have been, 1-8 in the last 11 games after
Lost
starting
8
out
of 9. Lost 8 of 9.
8 of 9 games. It's just goddamn, man. It's just rough to see and rough to hear. Just hear it coming out of my goddamn mouth. What's going on? What's going on, Brian? How you feeling? But man, this is now another matchup for the Bears. Of course, they lost last week 17-9. It was really 17-3 all the way into the end. 6 times in the red zone and came out with no points and a blocked field goal at that. That led to, once again, just looking very, very ugly. And the Seattle Seahawks been playing a lot better recently over time, even though they also are struggling. How do the Bears even come close to matching up against the Seattle Seahawks, and do they even have a chance to win this game, Kofi?
I mean, what can I say? I mean, the Bears, like you said, like the numbers, we're 4-10. We've lost 8 of 9 games since, what that Lions game, last game we won was that Lions game. And even prior to that, like some of those games were just close games because of poor play calling and our team just being undisciplined. But, I don't even know at this point if we do, because Pete Carroll, any coach at this point is better than Matt Nagy. At this point, Matt Nagy, he's one of the worst head coaches in the NFL, bar none. I'm not too sure if you noticed this, but I was watching Chicago Bears now, and Harrison Graham was making a remark that Matt Nagy was almost similar to Jason Garrett in a way. And when I look back at it, when I looked at the Dallas Cowboys and Jason Garrett and all his press conferences, I'm like, yeah, I definitely see some similarities between Matt Nagy and Jason Garrett. Whenever Jason Garrett ran a play on 4th and 1, he would always run a shotgun play with Dak Prescott in the box. And then most times out of 10, it wouldn't even be converted. He would do all these cute plays, these very, very conservative play calling that will result in nothing. He would always run a lot of these certain gadget plays that didn't get anywhere. And whenever the Dallas Cowboys held a lead, he always would say, oh, we're having fun. Same thing with Matt Nagy. Oh, when we faced the Packers, first half, 27-21. Oh, I'm having fun right now. But guess what? We ended up losing. We ended up losing 45-30. And because of that attitude, because of his way of coaching, not disciplining the team, not getting them prepared, not making any type of adjustments, because, of course, Jason Garrett, he never made any type of adjustments throughout any game. The same thing with Matt Nagy. He doesn't make any type of adjustments throughout the game. I wouldn't even be surprised if we lose to the Seattle Seahawks, because at least, even with all their deficiencies, at least Pete Carroll is somewhat of a competent head coach and a competent play caller compared to Matt Nagy. And with this team, there's no reason why we should be 4-10. We got talent all across the board. Like, I'm sick and tired of Matt Nagy running all these curl routes, or these short to intermediate routes that's getting us nowhere. And granted, I get it. Some of these players, like certain players like Demir Bird, who's always dropping a lot of passes, or Allen Robinson, the fact that he's always loafing most of the time in the game, he's always he's not giving 110%, even though this is his contract year. You look at Akeem Hicks with all the injuries he's dealt. Look at the last game. That guy gives 110% every single time. But when you have you're one of your top wide receivers, so you're paying top wide receiver money on a franchise tag, who's always loafing, or when Justin Fields was going to make that running play, he doesn't block, he doesn't design, he doesn't help his quarterback to block for him. That just shows you his head is not in the game. And that's a result of the head coaching. That's a result of the coaching staff not preparing their team every single week to be prepared for this team. So I don't know, Jonah Pittman. I wouldn't even be surprised if we do lose this game, even with Nick Foles starting.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's been real rough. A lot of things you mentioned, of course, Allen Robinson loafing around, not giving 100% effort. He hasn't gave much effort since early in the season. And like you said, despite the fact of all of the injuries that Akeem Hicks had faced, he still shows up and he still gives 100%. Last week, of course, he had 2 sacks, busting up run plays, doing everything he needed to do. And Allen Robinson just not coming back from injury. Now ended up on a COVID-19 protocol anyway, so it wasn't like he was going to be available to play, but he still, even with him being available to play, he still has not been able to show up throughout the season. And yeah, you can say that it's also game planning by the coach as well. They haven't really game planned for him to get the ball more often, much like they did in the previous years with Mitchell Trubisky, always getting Allen Robinson the football, and then it's everyone else. This year, it's like they just stepped completely away from him. Yeah, they said they was going to involve him in the slot like the Packers did with Devontae Adams, but with involving him in the slot a little bit more, putting him in different positions, it still ended up being like he's a non-factor whatsoever. And the fact that he's getting paid this top dollar in his contract year and not being anything somewhat effective, his stock has dropped drastically. And if he wanted to get that $20 million, he definitely not going to get it this year. Nope. You know, he's not going to get it after this season. He's probably going to get a tag of somewhere between 14 to 15 mil. Now, there might be some team out there that's willing to overpay for him, but I definitely don't see that happening, especially with the simple fact that he can't go out there and perform. And now that Justin Fields is hurt with an ankle injury, and now that Nick Foles is out there, that definitely puts a hamper in the chances of the Bears winning this game, because look how difficult it was when it was Andy Dalton and Justin Fields. I really don't expect much out of Nick Foles, but I do expect him at least to try to give somewhat of an effort out there. He is more familiar with this offense even more than Andy Dalton and Justin Fields is, working with it last year, knowing more of the ins and outs of the offense. But the players seem like to have regressed drastically even compared to last year. Mm-hmm. And of course, the offensive line is far worse than it was last year. Who would have guessed that Charles Leno Jr. was a better overall blocker than what the hell we got out there now, him and Bobby Massey, and how much I honestly miss those guys right now, because despite everything that happened, the amount of sacks that was given up last year, it definitely did not happen this year. And I just know,
even with all of our injuries too last year and COVID.
Yeah, with everything, with guys sitting out and everything else, it's going to be rough to see in this game, and this game could possibly end up being ugly. You know, I expected last week to be a complete blowout, but even with all 4 starters in the defensive backfield being gone, those guys did come to play. And like you said, it's an indictment on the coaching staff. Guys like Thomas Graham Jr. Yeah, being that far down on the depth chart, but he could have been a diamond in the rough that we needed early in the year, and probably could have switched a few games around for us.
Or that Packers game. They could have used him in that Packers game.
The Packers game, the Steelers game, the Ravens game. It's a lot of victories that was just left on the table because
49ers game when Deebo Samuel went for that 84-yard touchdown.
Yeah, with guys
that was
just
a
missing
backbreaker,
not being able to make those plays. It's the same exact thing. Like goddamn, if we got guys out there that could potentially be diamonds in the rough. Why haven't this coaching staff been able to see that and put these guys out there on the field? So it's just disappointing all the way around, and that's the reason why our team is 4-10 at this time. Now, of course, it is a few guys still on the COVID protocol. Still is a few guys that is still injured. Kofi, would you like to break down the guys that will be playing and will not be playing for the Bears before we do move on?
I'm gonna give a couple, maybe one or two. So from Seattle Seahawks side, John Radigan, the linebacker, he's not expected to play. He did not practice today or Friday, and I don't know how to pronounce this, Bleson Austin, who's their defensive back. He's dealing with the hip injury. Wednesday he was limited. Thursday and Friday he's questionable. I mean, but other than that, I think most of their players are going to play. Russell Wilson's going to play. DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf? Yeah, he's going to play. But also one of their wide receivers, Tyler Lockett, he's going to be out. Tyler Lockett's going to be out. And on the Chicago Bears side, of course, Justin Fields, he's going to be out with an ankle injury. We're saying he's questionable, but he's not going to play.
Right,
Eddie Goldman, he's questionable with the finger injury. Marquise Goodwin, he's questionable. But other than that, and Xavier Crawford, he's going to be out. Jakeem Grant is going to be out, and Jason Peters is going to be out. But that's pretty much all the injury reports so far.
Okay, so that means we is getting Allen Robinson to return in this game and a few other key guys that was on the COVID protocol list. I'm just going to run it through the guys that wasn't available last week that most likely will be available. Of course, it is Allen Robinson, who was on the COVID protocol last week, Jesse James, Eddie Jackson, Joel Mbagui, Ryan Nall, Isaiah Coulter. All those guys is going to play. Of course, we did have all the coordinators be out except for Sean Desai, but Chris Tabor and Bill Lazor will be back. Larry Borum is going to be back. Elijah Wilkerson. Of course, you just mentioned
he needs to go. I'm sorry. Wilkerson needs to go. Elijah Wilkerson is trash.
Well, basically, is he not? Well, he's an okay backup to come in if your guy's hurt, but he's not going to be a consistent guy.
No.
Of course, we did mention Eddie Goldman, who I believe he should play, even though it's a finger injury. They probably just tape that up and have him go out there and play. Sam Kamara, who was a defensive player who was out. Mario Edwards Jr., which honestly I don't even. He probably shouldn't even be back on the roster with the performance he had this year after playing lights out last year, being almost a non-factor this year and just constant penalties, undisciplined football. But he should be back. Artie Burns, which honestly he should probably play the nickel back. Put him at nickel and put Thomas Graham at the number 2 and see how that works out. That could probably be something that can help out the Bears going into next season if it is turned out to be there. Of course, Jalen Johnson is going to be back. He only missed 3 games since he's been in the NFL. Two games last year, of course, in the playoff game because of shoulder injury. And, of course, missing the games this year only because of the COVID protocol. And, of course, also Tayshaun Gibson, who was a late scratch later on with Jalen Johnson. But all those guys is indeed going to play. So I wonder how the cornerbacks is going to play overall now with all those guys back. They gave out a valuable effort last week, still holding a decent offense, a very decent offense, especially very good rushing offense with the Vikings in check and holding them to 17 points. Do you think that they will be able to make that same effort with majority of the starters coming back on defense, especially with the defensive backs, or will this just turn into an ass whooping, even though we got the starters back?
I think they could replicate what they did last week because Believe it or not, Justin Jefferson, he's having one of the best seasons, not only in the NFL, but they're saying that he was having one of the best, his first best 2 seasons as a Minnesota Viking. I think he's the first Minnesota Viking receiver to average well over 2,000 yards compared to Randy Moss. Like, so he was having an historic season, Justin Jefferson. And like I said, not only that, he's one of the best receivers so far in the league. And the fact that they
Absolutely.
held him to like, what, I think 5 receptions for 47 yards was pretty good. Very, very good from the Bears defensive back, especially with Thomas Graham. Thomas Graham was pretty much mostly guarding Justin Jefferson, and he did a pretty good job. I think he had like 3 or 4 pass breakups. He had a couple tackles. He played really, really well.
Great
And
open field tackles.
great. He has great open field tackling. He was literally on Justin Jefferson, draping on him and breaking up a lot of passes. And I think they also got on one interception. I think was it DeAndre Houston who got an interception
Yeah.
on Kirk Cousins. So the secondary, they played really well. I mean, I thought it was going to be a bloodbath with everything, with what was going on with our secondary, Jalen Johnson being out, Deshaun Gibson being out, Eddie Jackson being out. But unfortunately, I mean, they were playing really well. I mean, if you looked at the game, like you saw how they're able to communicate with each other. They're able to know where their assignments were. They were playing really well. Again, the defense was trying to keep up or trying to help this offense keep up with this team, but the offense just couldn't keep up with the Minnesota Vikings. Like I said, with this whole game planning, with Matt Nagy and his game planning, it didn't even work. But other than that, I feel like this Bears secondary can really replicate what they did last week, knowing that one of their best receivers, Tyler Lockett, is not going to be playing. And so they're pretty much just going to be keying on DK Metcalf because DK Metcalf, he's one of their best weapons on the Seattle Seahawks. And with the way Russell Wilson has been playing, he hasn't been playing well at all this season. Even with the injuries, like the Seattle Seahawks has not been playing well. And for some odd reason, Pete Carroll cannot sometimes get out of his own way. He like I said, with the whole let Russell cook, he doesn't allow Russell Wilson to design certain plays for himself or call certain plays that he knows that's gonna help this team. And Pete Carroll, he's just kind of like that run first type of guy. Like he's just gonna keep running the ball over and over again, thinking that's gonna work. And sometimes it doesn't work. And so I mean, I think the Bears secondary, especially their front seven, the Bears defense overall is going to have a pretty decent game. But I mean, like I said, with this Bears offense, I'm not even too confident at all, especially with Nick Foles starting. Because all over the offense has just pretty much regressed. Darnell Mooney has regressed. Cole Kmet has regressed. I mean, all around, like the Bears offense has just massively regressed. So, I don't know. I'm not feeling too good about this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Only one that has been consistent despite having an injury, and that was David Montgomery, who still shows that he's the heart and soul of the offense, and everything has to start and end with him. You still have to be able to pass the football, but how do you pass the football? By running the ball down the guy's throats, and then after that, you're able to initiate the play action pass. You're able to initiate those shuffle passes that Matt Nagy likes to run. He does it at the most inconvenient time, but it can happen. Those end around plays, those different type of concepts where you getting those speedy receivers out in the open field and able to turn the corner. Only how that does happen is with David Montgomery receiving the football as much as possible, not only running the football, but also in the passing game. They did it plenty in the game against Minnesota. It was just that they couldn't make it to the end zone. You know, like I said before, I mentioned multiple times before, they was in Minnesota 26 times. They was in Minnesota territory seven total times throughout the game, and it only accommodated 9 points. So that lets you know that the Bears offense
really only 3 points.
Right. Yeah. And the garbage time touchdown. That lets you know how close the Bears offense is on the brink of actually doing something good. Just a simple fact that because it is Matt Nagy's offense, that's the reason why they couldn't score those points. Because if there was any other team in that situation, being inside of Minnesota's territory 7 times, in the red zone 6 times, they win that game. Minnesota most likely gets blown out with that type of offensive performance. You know, Dalvin Cook being held to 70 points. Kirk Cousins
for 70 yards.
Right. 87 total yards of passing from the Vikings offense. That usually is a recipe for disaster, but because they played the Bears, that's the reason why it happened the way it did. So I don't know what to expect. It could be a whooping like we thought it would have been last week, or somehow they able to clean up enough mess and able to put up some points when they get into Seattle territory. Even though Seattle is at home, they will be behind the 12th man. It's going to be very, very rough. And luckily, of course, Russell Wilson is not playing his best as well, and that's one of the main reasons why Seattle is not looking as good. Of course, Russell Wilson was injured for a while, and that did just derail their season as well. And their defense is just one of the worst in the league. I don't even know how bad their defense is, but they make some of they make some of the worst offenses look good. Now the Bears had the opportunity to, like I said, put up a lot of points against the 25th ranked defense that Minnesota does have. I think
Seattle's defense, I think, is worse than
I think theirs is
Minnesota.
worse than 29th.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
So the Bears do have a strong chance of still being able to put up some points, even though I do not believe that they're going to win this game. If they was to win it, I still would be surprised. So honestly, what score prediction do you have for this game between these two?
I don't know if I could put a score prediction on this because I don't want to try to jinx myself or make some type of prediction, but I mean, I think it's going to be it can go either or, depending on who plays, depending on who plays more aggressively. I mean, if Seattle comes out and scores a touchdown and plays a little bit more aggressively, I could see the Bears folding up and then losing in a blowout. And at the same time, if the Bears come out, plays aggressively, designs certain game plan to attack Seattle's defense, I can also see the Bears blowing out the Seattle Seahawks, because both of these teams they're not good. You know,
No,
they're not good. And I read this statistic from NFL.com, and like with the Bears, they're wearing their 1936 uniforms on Monday. This Bears team is averaging right now, as we speak, as of December 24th, 2021, this Bears teams or this offense is averaging 17.6 points per game. And you know how much that 1936 Bears team averaged during that time?
18.
Exactly. Averaged 18 points per game.
Yeah, no, we read the same thing, but when I seen it, all I do was just shake my head. I'm like, wow, it's that bad, huh?
It's that bad.
I'm about to say shit. I believe they scored less points than the 2017 Bears. I think 2017 Bears averaged more points than that, and that was vanilla with having only Tariq Cohen and Jordan Howard, and then having
And we didn't have no receivers at that time.
right.
Like our only best
Dontrell
receiver, I
Inman,
think, was like what, Major Wright
Major Wright, and
no,
Dontrell Inman.
and Dontrell Inman.
That was the best receivers that the Bears had at that time. So that lets you know, like, yeah, that this team is horrible this year. And I'm surprised I'm surprised that they even won more games in the 2017. Well, as a matter of fact, they won. I think
No,
in
2017 we won 5 games. We still have we still have 4 wins.
Right. So I'm like, well, it is what it is, man. And in 2017, defense was at least top 10. It's just that we can have offensive firepower. This offense this year actually have enough firepower. It's just that the coaching is so goddamn bad and abysmal.
So horrible.
Yeah, can't make second half adjustments, can't do this, can't do that. And that's the reason why this team is in this type of situation. So
I don't even think Adam Gase's offense was as bad as Matt Nagy's. And with all his debacle with the Jets, and we know how horrible Adam Gase was.
yeah, I believe they still scored at least 22 points per game.
Right. Matt Nagy can't even do that.
Exactly. So that's why I'm like, I don't know. It's very rough just being a Bears fan and watching the season and seeing how everything is going to go. All I can say is good luck to the players. And hopefully Nick Foles can go out there and do some late season
magic. Super Bowl magic.
Right. Do his best to, because honestly, I don't know how this is going to turn out for the Bears. You know, like you said, this can be a blowout either way. You know, matter of fact, what will be the actual score predictions before I continue?
Probably 31-17 or 28-14.
What, either way? For both
either
teams?
way. Either way.
Yeah, I can see that happening. You know, I got a different perspective on it. If Seattle wins, it's gonna be an ass whooping. It's gonna be like 35-14 type of game. If Seattle does win this game, and if it turns out that somehow the Bears is to win this, it'll be because it's a low-scoring game. Defense came to play much like they did last week. This time they're able to put up a few more points, and the Bears win, like 21-17 or something like that, or 24-20. But honestly, I don't even know if the Bears would be able to even put up 24 points because of how bad they struggled to score in the red zone.
But I give you this: the past few years, we have owned the Seattle Seahawks, but I don't know about this year.
Yeah, everything is coming to full fruition that the team that, like the Bears. Remember, the Bears had dominated the AFC North. Then they only won one game out of that. They dominated a lot of teams at the time, and couldn't do much at all with not one team this year. And they could have won a lot of games. They could have won at least an additional 3 or 4 games this year, and couldn't do it simply because terrible second half adjustments, terrible first half adjustments, or just couldn't play at all throughout the entire game.
Realistically, so, we could have swept Green Bay. I'm being honest. We could have swept Green Bay if we had the right game plan.
The right game
I'm
plan.
being honest.
On top of that, the defense was able to. Well, yeah, just defense was able to make stops, and also coaches just being.
They don't know how to make adjustments. That's their problem. We couldn't make any adjustments.
Yeah, it's like it's very just irritating to see the coach. It's irritating to see as a fan that we know exactly what the coaches is not about to do, and then they go out and then they do exactly what we said they wasn't going to do. That's what makes it so frustrating. Like when the Bears was beating Green Bay and it was halftime, and you wrote in and you said right off back, man, these guys is not gonna make no halftime adjustments, and that scares me. And I was like, oh,
that's
shit.
What I said. That's what I said.
And I was like,
and I know Ghost of Judah Tribe, he was so excited. I'm like, Ghost, don't get yourself too excited, man. Ghost, don't get too excited, bro. Even though I was kind of happy, I was like, hold your horses, man. This is the Bears team.
Right. Even though I was happy, I was like, I didn't expect this. I expected to be a blowout.
Mm-hmm.
But all we're gonna have to do is see exactly how the second half is gonna go. If they're gonna make second half adjustments, if they're gonna try to use David Montgomery more. They didn't do none of that.
They didn't do that. Only one carry.
One carry, and all they did was just try to throw the ball down the field the rest of the game. And we saw exactly how it turned out. So yeah, man, all we can do is just hope and pray that the Bears team just shows up and try to play somewhat competent. Hopefully this is the 2019 Bears team from last year during a 5-1 run before everything just went down and plummeted downhill yet again. And then they wound up losing 6 straight games. So I don't know, man. You got anything else that you need to say before we end up ending this podcast?
Go Bears. That's all I gotta say. Ain't not much to say. This team is garbage.
Yeah, I know, man. 4-10 definitely.
And it's so sad. It's so sad because in 2017 we didn't have the type of talent that we have now, and it's like I thought we were gonna come a long way. After that 2018 season, I thought, man, this team might have a future, but ever since then, it's just been
going downhill, and that's mainly just because of the coaching staff failing to do the right thing and conform to the players around you.
And then the front office not helping their quarterback, surround them by getting them an old line or the right type of talent
whatsoever. And that's the reason why it is what it is, and that's why this team is at the position that they is now. So it is what it is, and hopefully this season can't end no goddamn faster. So, but it is what it is, man. Well, we're going to still be talking about Bears football for the rest of the season and in the off season. And then we start having a lot of guests come on. They're just going to be more about football. We're going to be, of course, the people that's watching, we're going to have everybody come on. It doesn't matter if it's sports, music, or whatever. We're going to try to expand our horizon, expand the podcast. So, but it is what it is, though. But this is Jonah Pitney bringing it back to you with another Main Event podcast, along with my co-host Kofi O'Hemy from KO Sports Talk. Once again, talking about the Chicago Bears taking on the Seattle Seahawks in this Week 16 matchup. All right, people. Peace out.
See you later, guys. See ya.
Y'all ready?